All right, and we are here for Always Almost There live, episode number 2. Today we are here talking about Sacred Rose, Bridgeview, Illinois, from last night. I'm Ryan.
I'm
I'm
Neil.
Kev.
I'm Jive Goose.
Would that be Jive Goose, Fantasy Goose champion?
It would be, and thank you for leading us straight into the most important topic of the day, which is
Well, listen. I figured I'd get that out of the way while people are still filtering in. So by the time people get here, we're talking about the relevant stuff.
Possibly the most
and
controversial as well.
we're gonna do a special episode where we dive in and just take a look back at the season, some of my highlights, some of my best picks. So yeah, look forward to that. But yeah, thank you, Ryan, for the congratulations. I feel like it's been a long time coming, and happy to keep the championship belt in the family here. Of course, Danny won at the last tour, and Neil, did you win?
I've won a couple times.
Okay, that's right. I thought I've heard you mention that. So yeah. Hey, fun times. But honestly, look, it's this season was really cool. The amount of players, continues to grow. I feel like the banter is growing a bit. It's expanding. Right? There's a lot of other, cool, funny people kind of getting involved and putting up some scores too. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the fall.
And then also some of us that have been playing for a while that maybe with some of these new songs and formats aren't, necessarily doing as well as we used to. But
Neil,
we're gonna keep trying. We're gonna have fun.
Kev,
we just want everybody to have fun.
Kev, what was your
want
8-pointer the other day again?
My 8-pointer yesterday was hot tea. So
for Thing Festival. What was your?
I don't remember.
Wasn't it the Father John Misty?
Oh yeah, man, leave me alone.
he goes for the wild card picks.
Hey, I'm so far off the map at this point that Hail Marys were necessary and welcome at that point.
You do what you got to do. Mike the Narc in the chat. Hi, Mike the Narc.
Oh, we're going to talk about him
Mike?
today.
He's there. He said
Mike?
hi. And shout out to 4 of us being in the top 6 for Fantasy Goose, and Kev for doing his absolute best, as he always does.
Try very hard, and I had a lot of fun, and that's what matters.
Yeah. I'm going to send Kevin a couple stickers.
Good. Just because he's a great guy?
Yeah, he just participated,
I was
we
told
want to
there was going
encourage
to be
that.
I was told there was going to be a trophy, but whatever.
Well,
you don't get anything actually. This will be the most recognition right here today.
I appreciate that.
So let's move into relevant topics here now, instead of just continuing to take pot shots at each other. We are done summer tour, which is crazy, hard to believe. Now with the cancellation of Resonance, we have 4.5 weeks before Goose performs again. There's an Arebelo show scheduled. I think there's that also that festival in September, Lawn Con, with Elephant Proof and Jed, which looks to be cool. But Goose is not performing again until the beginning of fall tour on September 29th, which is crazy. We just had 2 nights at festivals very far away from each other to close out the tour. Obviously we were not live, unfortunately, yesterday to talk about Thing Festival because due to an unfortunate lack of a webcast and a stream that was up briefly, but then unfortunately the connection wasn't great. We weren't able to listen to it. But we do have a set list, and just like a couple of quick thoughts on it. It seems that they've kind of developed 2 different formulas for festival sets, as we've seen over the past 2 nights. There's the more mainstream festival kind of set, which we saw earlier in the summer at like Beale Street, obviously at Thing Festival. And then there's the different kind of festival set that's more geared towards the jam band festivals like Peach, or we saw last night at Sacred Rose. Obviously, different songs. I think we saw a few a few similarities between last night and Peach. I just feel like in terms of tone of the set and how it flowed. But what do you guys think of these two kind of festival formulas that Goose has developed this summer?
Well, so I think that the set list for Thing Festival was actually really, really nice. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is that, and we don't have timings on those. We haven't heard anything yet, but just the fact that they played 8 songs in what was supposed to be, and so we're assuming was a 75-minute set. So eight tunes in 75 minutes, and then last night, by contrast, 7 songs in closer to 2 hours. They didn't get their full 2 hours, but. So obviously the stuff they did at ThinkFest was, they were down to business and they were playing some of their greatest songs. You know what I mean? So, like we said before, you know what I mean? It's not that much different than what they did at Red Rocks. You know what I mean? Played a lot of their best, most popular songs and didn't necessarily jam out a lot of stuff. So anyway, so same type of deal that we've talked about. But the one difference that I would call out is if you look at something like what they did at Beale Street versus what they did at Thing Festival.
Yeah.
Maybe you're saying those are both kind of more mainstream non-jam band festivals, but they did change the formula a little bit, because that the Thing Festival, I think, was at a higher level, more towards what you would expect to see at a jam band festival in terms of their their play calling and stuff like that. So anyway, I think a lot of it is just how much do they want to jam is really the question.
Yeah, for sure. And then interesting thing about Thing Festival is that there was no cover, right? So kind of a shift from like Beale Street, where like I think they did a cover that would be
Electric
like a crowd
Avenue
pleaser to like pull people in, and not this time around.
And Neil, you had a count on how many originals have been played. What was that number?
Oh yeah, I mean that one's crazy. I was just kind of like messing around with my spreadsheet and kind of looking at it. I was like, wow, there's just like a lot of like late August dates in here, and then I just sorted it, and it was exactly 50. So prior to last night, they had played in the previous 7 days 50 unique original songs.
I don't think any of the originals last night would have made it 51.
No, they wouldn't have.
Anyway,
they wouldn't have. So, but just over the course of those 7 days, I think that's like kind of like a cool little footnote to all of that, which is they ran through basically 2/3 of their catalog of originals in 7 days, which is pretty impressive. I mean, it's cool. I haven't like looked at it against like other more established bands and what that looks like, but I think it's probably about as hard as you can go without going like, super, super hard on no repeats and things like that.
And for context, that 50, that's out of a total of 67 unique originals that they've played this year.
And those originals are including Great Blue and Vasudo tunes, obviously.
Yeah, I don't like make that distinction at all when I track songs.
I don't either. I consider those originals. Speaking of Great Blue songs, bring back Jeff Engborg, please.
Yes, please.
We've been missing our friend Jeff since March. We would like him to come back. So let's dive in a little bit to last night's set. I think some really, really solid improv in the first half of the set. In Pancakes, Madhavan, and Arrow. Madhavan got into a really, really nice major key jam in the middle there. Really, really great stuff. Pancakes, just straight fire from beginning to end. I think a great way to open the set, kind of draw people over from where Humphreys was playing nearby. But I just think it was a really, really great way to open the set. And then Arrow, I thought, on first listen last night, while obviously our live stream wasn't perfect, but we are so grateful to those at Sacred Rose last night who did do some audio streams for us. So thank you so much. But, from what I heard, it sounded like a pretty, I think it was an above average Arrow for 2022. Some definitely interesting sections that I am very excited to revisit once we get soundboard quality of that.
Yeah, all three of those jams were largely upbeat. And like you said, I mean, I definitely struggled to really get much of a clear listen in on anything. So, it's especially anything nuanced, any times when the volume might have come down a little bit, it was even more difficult to hear. But so I know Jesse was on, I don't know if he's still on, but yeah, anybody who was there last night, drop some thoughts in the comments, because, we didn't have the greatest listen, and I haven't talked to anybody really other than just a few comments here and there on Twitter who's there. So yeah, I'd love to hear people's thoughts, now they've had some time to sleep on it. But yeah, I am excited to get back to really this whole set and be able to really dig into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was really, I think of the things that I'm most excited to go back and listen to, that Madhavan kind of struck me as pretty cool. That jam that they got into for a while there, and I think we were all talking about it, sounded great, but like you said, we're not going to really know for sure until we actually get a good listen to it. Then Arrow struck me as pretty good last night too. Like I was psyched about that Arrow, and I've been critical of Arrows in the past. I think we all have, where like sometimes they just don't go anywhere. But that one sounded like it went to a pretty cool, different place. So really looking forward to hearing that one as well.
That Arrow seemed like it had a couple different unique sections to it. Ryan in the comments there says another great Arrow was at Beach Fest as well. I think that is a great reference point for the last good Arrow. I am definitely looking forward to getting back into the one that they played last night, because it seemed like there were several distinct, very good sections, and it was very difficult. Like a couple of you have alluded to, the bass just took over that entire Mixler last night.
Yeah, there was at the beginning of Arrow, Trevor had a bass bomb that completely destroyed the sound of the stream for 15, 20 seconds, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I was reading on Facebook. So Mike, who's in the comments, I think he posted something about the sit-ins a minute ago, but
which we'll get to.
He was doing sound or support for the band, and he was talking about how the sound bleed from Sector 9 coming over was kind of overtaking the bass, so they kept kind of like cranking up Trevor's bass, so it would like cover Sector 9's bass. So by the end of the show, I think what you heard on the the audio stream is actually indicative of how loud the bass was. It wasn't like a poor recording or anything like that. I think they absolutely just had the bass cranked.
I mean, I'm okay with that. Props to Padge for fixing Rick's snap string mid-song and swapping amps to his backup Mesa. Wow, that's impressive. Props to Padge. I wonder
Ryan,
what song
Ryan, would that be a backup of a backup amp, or did they bring their own amps?
A backup of a rented amp, maybe.
Okay.
Unless they traveled with Rick's smaller amp on the plane, but I'm guessing
the
logistics
of that is just amazing to me.
Yes, so rented gear last night as well, which I forgot to mention. Oh, they had their amps. Thank you, Mike. They had their amps. Interesting to note, most notably, I think, in Peter's gear, he had a real Hammond B3 last night, and a Fender Rhodes instead of his vintage Vibe. So if you're listening to last night's show or the High Sierra set from earlier in the summer, and you notice that the electric piano sounds a little bit different, that's because it is a rented Fender Rhodes instead of the vintage Vibe. So it's cool to hear that slightly different sound. I think the only thing that really suffers in Peter world from backlining is he doesn't have his clav, which means we miss out on his absolutely perfect clav tone a little bit. But
and then your clav tweet has to sit in the draft folder.
I know it doesn't get put out. Unfortunately, but let's move into talking about these sit-ins. We've got a great comment from Mike to talk about here too, but we had Margot Price on tambourine and vocals for Don't Do It, and Corey Wong on Hot Tea. I thought Margot added nicely to Don't Do It. Pretty solid cover. She was artist at large for the festival, so it made sense to have her up. I was not expecting another sit-in on the next song, but I was so happy when they called up Corey. I was just a little bit disappointed when he didn't sit in with them at Fred last year, but I'm really happy that this happened. I think, his style of rhythm guitar playing is absolutely phenomenal and just really complemented this song so well. Great solo from him in the middle section too. But I would love to hear Corey sit in on this again. You know, his sound and his band, Corey and the Long Notes, they are not a jam band, but they would be a very good jam band. And so, you know, it's really cool to hear. It's really cool to hear him playing in a jam setting and hear how, you know, his style really kind of opens up in that section.
So let me. My first thought when they introduced Margot Price was that I hope that they play California Magic, because that's where my head immediately went to. I thought maybe that would sound really cool with some nice you know, female vocals. You know, anyway, so you know, don't do it. That makes sense, you know, because it's you know, it's a song that probably you know, she already knew, and so, you know, it's maybe a little bit easier. But yeah, it would have been nice maybe if they would have had a little bit more time to work out some of that stuff. That would have been really cool. And then yeah, the Corey stuff was really cool. That is kind of the one thing that we were able to go back to today, because there's a couple of YouTube videos up with it. So yeah, he's a great player. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing a nice cleaned up version of that on the soundboard as well.
Yeah, that hot tea was spectacular. I just got, like, right before we recorded, I got the full bit of it, and I watched it, you know, before we got on. And I mean, it's almost like that song was written for them to do a sit-in with Corey Wong. It's just like the fit is so perfect on it, and it just sounds amazing. And it's just a, you know, a nice solid ripper of a hot tea, kind of like awesome for a festival set. Like, kind of showcases Corey Wong like pretty well. And yeah. And he fits like a glove too. We were talking about this last night with his, like, I mean, his rhythm tone is basically the same exact rhythm tone that Peter would play if he were to play rhythm guitar on Hot Tea, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty cool.
I think there was a comment made, I don't know if it was in the group chat last night, that Corey's guitar sounded a little more dominant in the mix than perhaps Rick did at the time. I don't know if that held up. I didn't see the YouTube video. I don't know if that held up on the YouTube video for y'all. In regards to the Margot Price sit-in, I love her vocals, and I can't wait to go back once the soundboards are cleaned up and hear that as it was.
Same amp, different strats. Yes. So, and as you mentioned, you know, Corey's tone being similar to Peter's, obviously also, Peter's rhythm playing and tone are, you know, he cited Corey Wong as a huge influence on him. So it must have been really cool to play with, Corey last night, you know, in addition to having Corey, you know, at the Goose Fred Festival last year. But, you know, it must be really cool to get to play with one of your influences like that. But yeah, as you mentioned, tone really, really worked. And then to close the set and the tour, you know, had to be Dripfield. It was interesting to see the paper set list come out this morning, because there were, I think, like 4 or 5 more songs written on it, which is, you know, very ambitious for them for a 2-hour slot. But, you know, shoot for the moon. There was Animal was on it, which I think some of us were expecting, but we did have a moment yesterday before the show started where we realized that none of us put Echo of a Rose on our fantasy picks, which we figured would be an easy pick given the name of the festival, but they didn't play it.
So I remember seeing Creatures and Animal. What were the others on the list? That
there was a Robert closer.
Oh, and the Bob John, yeah.
A Robert
Donaldson.
I wonder if it being written as, gotta have audibles for different vibes. I wonder if Robert being written instead of Bob Don means that they were going to play it with, and if so, then that is an unfortunate thing to be left off.
I'm actually surprised that was on the set list at all. Out of all those songs, I kind of like put them in a bucket of just kind of like bangers or like ragers, you know, and then Bob Don, I don't know if I put in that same category,
Bob
even though
Don's a
I
banger.
absolutely love the song. But yeah, it would have been interesting to end the show with that.
Neil, you're going to have to come up with another bucket here, because it says you got to have audibles for different vibes. That's what Mike says. So you're going to have like a vibe bucket now too.
It's a vibe bucket, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, and look, I mean, that it's nice just to hear someone mention that, because I know we've talked about that a little bit, where it's like, yeah, I don't know that I don't know that it's always the case, but when we see these paper set lists where 3 songs didn't get played or something, I don't know that it's always the case of they were planning on playing every one of those songs. I think it's like what Mike is saying here is that, well, hey, look, let's add this other song or 2 in here, and depending on how we feel coming out of this, or whatever the case may be, there's probably different criteria. These are the options we're looking at, so that maybe they're not, when they're on stage and they're focused, they're not, and they do want to pivot, they don't have to go so far in their head to figure out what to pivot to. There's a little bit of almost a backup plan built into the paper set list. So
it's a great strategy for sure.
Yeah,
I think.
So it's not always poor time management. I think it's the point.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Right. Which is like a frequent criticism, right?
Yeah, they've been better the last show where they had an early curfew. But yes, that's I keep saying, but it's sometimes it's hard to believe that we're at the end of summer tour. I guess summer tour technically started at the end of April. Which is 4 months ago, which is crazy. But there's been so much that's happened. Really excited. We are recording tomorrow. We are recording our August leg of summer tour recap episode with all 5 of us, which will be up later in the week. Very much looking forward to that and talking about bigger picture stuff as we head into this month-long break before fall tour. You guys,
yeah, and then maybe another kind of mid-year check-in before fall tour starts, where we can kind of look back at some more of the kind of overarching themes, and then we can also check in on Jam of the Year, see where that's going, how the bracket's shaping up. So yeah, looking forward to to digging a little bit deeper into some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to bounce and look back at the year that's kind of gone by. It's 57 shows, which is an enormous amount of music, well over 100 hours to listen to and kind of digest a little bit and kind of break down for folks. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Before they completely move on from Sacred Rose, though, the one thing that I did want to mention, which I said I was going to mention, is that Jeff was playing a rented gong.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm really, really looking forward to those boards so we can hear the different gong sound that I was reading about on Facebook today.
I think that was from Mike.
It was from Mike. Yeah, it was from Mike.
But yeah, Wong Gang.
Wong Gang.
Yeah, the Wong Gang.
That was a good thing coined on Twitter last night. That was funny. Well, yeah, my current Jam of the Year playlist is around exactly the 24-hour mark. So if you have a spare day, but I think we're all going to be posting updated playlists within a couple of days of the soundboards for these 2 festivals dropping. I imagine they're not going to change a ton from where they are after Portland, but it'll be interesting to hear once we listen to I think especially that Arrow again, whether it ranks. Because let me tell you, I've had to cut some jams off the bottom to keep it at 64. I haven't been enjoying that.
Oh man, so Kevin and I were just texting the other day, and I was like, it's just crazy to look at some of the shit that's fallen off. You know what I mean?
I asked specifically about the Echo from MPP if it ended up making his 64, and he gave me the big no on that.
No.
Yeah. It's really good, and it doesn't make it. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get like absolutely dragged whenever the seating comes out. There's gonna be so many jams that people just absolutely love and are like super connected with. And like, I get it and I agree.
Yeah,
but like it's impossible choices now this year.
Yeah, I feel like last year, there were only like 6 or 7 really popular jams that weren't on the bracket that people were a little bit upset about. But I think this year, because there are so many more shows and so many more incredible jams being played, like there's going to be a lot that doesn't make it that people are not going to be too pleased about.
Yeah. And, the other thing too is, I feel like there's I looked into this a little bit, but there seems to be a direct correlation between attendance growth as the band plays larger venues and attendance bias. So one goes up and then they both go up. And so
it's a positive correlation.
There's a lot of attendance bias out there is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then, with the amount of shows they're playing in Colorado right now,
yeah,
like forget about it. Like every single one of those better make the list,
Hey, if you have attendance bias, I will be holding ABA, Attendance Bias Anonymous, for those who need help. I now have the DC Wisteria ranked number 4 on my list.
Oh, good for you, Ryan.
It's possible to get over your attendance bias.
All you need is a bunch of friends to make fun of you regularly.
Constantly for like 6 months.
We do it because we love you, Ryan. That's the only reason.
There we go. Okay, well, I think we're getting a little off track here. But it was good. Great way to close out the summer. We're looking forward to talking about the whole tour tomorrow night, which you guys will hear later. But thank you for everybody for tuning in to this episode. We will be back sometime soon. So keep your eyes on social media for that. We'll see you next time.
Thanks to Mike for all the context, man. All that extra stuff you brought.
Yes, we appreciate it.
We'll appreciate that comment too.
Yes.